نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. So we will continue today with our Arabic grammar lessons, inshallah. We were discussing na'at last time, and na'at was one of the subordinate words from at-tawabi' or tabi' singular. We have already discussed all those words which are directly influenced by an amil, a word governance, to become halatul rafa', halatul nasab, and halatul jar. And at-tabi', as we have said, are those words which are not directly influenced, however they follow a word before it, their predecessor in their case. And we discussed na'at, which is a sifa, a word which is used to describe. So it can describe the matbu', its predecessor, itself, or it could describe something which is related to the matbu'. So it's indicating upon a meaning that's in the matbu' or something related to the matbu'. And today we are continuing with tawabi'. The second type is atf bil huruf, so an apposition with particles. So this is a noun, a subordinate noun, and it has attributed to it the same thing which is attributed to its matbu'. So the meaning or the case or the grammatical position of its matbu' will be shared with the tabi'. So whatever the matbu' is doing in the sentence, the tabi' will also do it, and they are both equally important for the meaning of the sentence to be conveyed. You can also call this atf an-nasaq, a conjunction. And in order to create this meaning, you need to have a particle of atf between the two nouns. For example, قام سعيد وخالد. So this sentence means that Sa'id stood and Khalid stood. So wa is the particle of atf, and Khalidun is the ma'tuf, which is the tabi', and Sa'idun is the ma'tuf alayh. So in the sentence, the waw is the particle of atf, the ma'tuf alayh is the word or noun that comes before the particle of atf, and the ma'tuf is the word or noun that comes after the particle of atf. I might have said that the wrong way around before. So some of the particles include waw, fa, and thumma or o, like wa, fa, thumma, o. There are a few more which we'll cover in the section which is about particles. So if atf, just some rules. If atf is done on a dhamir marfu' muttasil, so this is a pronoun which is in the nominative case, so it's a subject, and it's attached to a verb, so it's the subject of a verb, and it's a pronoun. Then you also have to use a dhamir munfasil, detached pronoun, to make proper sense of the sentence. If you are trying to create the atf and ma'tuf alayhi meaning. For example, jalastu ana wa sa'idun, and unless there is and we've already discussed this slightly when we were discussing maf'ul ma'ahu. If you remember that a waw was used there in the meaning of ma'a, and it caused the word after it to be mansub, and we explained the rulings of this dependent on the waw, if it can be in the meaning or if it can be used for atf or not. If it could not be used for atf, then it would have been mansub. So for our purposes today, what we need to remember is that if there is a pronoun which is the subject of a verb and it's attached to the verb, and you want to do atf on the meaning of the verb, then you have to use another pronoun which is detached, like jalastu ana jalastu. The tu in jalasa, in jalastu, is the pronoun which means I, and then ana comes after jalastu, which is a detached pronoun which also means I. So instead of saying jalastu wa sa'idan, you say jalastu ana wa sa'idun. So I and Sa'id sat. However, this rule no longer applies when there's already a word between the two the tabi'a matbu, the ma'tuf and ma'tuf alayhi. So if there's a word like like a maf'ul fihi, like katabtu al-yawma, yawma is a maf'ul fihi, that's why it's mansub. So katabtu, once again, I wrote. So the tu dhamir, the pronoun in tu is a marfu pronoun. It's nominative. Sorry about that. Just had a call. I had to cancel that. So I was saying about the word katabtu, and I said in the example katabtu yawma wa khalidun. Here you do not need to bring a separate detached pronoun for the sentence to work in an ma'tuf alayhi sense, because the word yawma is being used instead of a detached pronoun. So you can still create the atf and the atf meaning in this sentence structure. So you could say katabtu al-yawma wa khalidun, and this is permissible. Interestingly, if the word that apposition is being established on, so if you're doing atf on a word which is a dhamir, majroor muttasil, so there's a pronoun which is attached to a particle of jar, then you have to repeat that particle of jar, the genitive particle, in the ma'tuf. For example, marartu bika wa bi sa'idin. So I passed by you and Sa'id. So I can't say marartu bika wa sa'idin. I have to say marartu bika wa bi sa'idin. At any rate, the ruling or the hukam of the ma'tuf will be the same as the ma'tuf alayh. So if the first term is a sifa or a khabar or a sila, so that's a relative clause which we haven't covered yet. However, we have covered a hal. So if it's a hal or sifa, khabar or sila, then the second term will also be the same. And the way to determine if a word can be a ma'tuf is you have to check to see if it can be placed in the same position as its ma'tuf alayh. So if you could change them around, if you could put the ma'tuf in the place of the ma'tuf alayh, then it's permissible to do atf, the opposition. One more particular rule about atf al-huruf is that it's sometimes permissible to do atf on words that have a different word that influences the governance. So they have different amils. So this is when the ma'tuf is majroor and the ma'tuf alayh is also majroor, and it comes before a marfu' noun. So this is when the ma'tuf alayh comes before a marfu' noun. For example, in fiddari zaydun wal hujrati amrun, we notice fiddari is majroor because it comes after the particle fi, which is harf jar. Then we have a marfu' noun, zaydun, which comes after it. And although normally atf is done between two words, we see hujrati is not being connected or related to zaydun, but it's being related to dari. Therefore, hujra, which means room, will also be majroor, even though the word directly before the particle of atf is marfu'. Hujra will still be majroor. It will not be marfu'. So you read it fiddari zaydun wal hujarati amrun. You will not recite wal hujaratu amrun, because when the ma'tuf alay is majroor and the ma'tuf is also majroor and it comes before a marfu' word, then you can have different word governance. Hopefully that made sense. So fiddari zaydun wal hujrati amrun. In the house is Zayd and in the room is Amr. The next type of tabi' we have is ta'kid, which just means emphasis. So yeah, what to emphasis is when a meaning is affirmed, or it affirms the meaning attributed to the mu'akkad, the matbu'. For example, ja'ani zaydun nafsuhu. So I wrote nafsahu, it should be nafsuhu there, because nafsuhu is, it means self. So Zayd himself came to me, or Zayd came to me himself, and nafsuhu will follow the case of Zaydun. So it can also confirm the inclusion of a ruling for each individual member of the matbu'. So this means that if the matbu' is a plural word like nation, or there's a Quran example which is al malaikatu kulluhum ajma'un. Malaika is the plural of malak, which means angel, and malaika is the plural. And by adding the word kulluhum and ajma'un, it shows that the attribute, so the Quran verse was fasajjada al-malaikatu kulluhum ajma'un, so all of the angels prostrated. So sajada is the action or the attribute being added to the angels, and by saying kulluhum and ajma'un, both are used for extra emphasis, it shows that each individual angel, all of them, right, all of them prostrated. So it's emphasizing that fact, that it wasn't just a few of them, even because plural just means more than three or more. So if I said the angels prostrated, it could just mean three or more angels prostrated. But by saying kulluhum ajma'un, it means each individual member of this group, which is known as angel prostrated. So there's two types of ta'kid. One is lafzi, which is literal in this case. So the word itself is repeated. This can be a noun, a verb, or a particle. For example, ja'ani zaydun, or ja'ani zaydun zaydun, or it can even be a particle as well, like inna zaydan qa'imun. So the particle inna can be repeated. And then we have ma'nwi. This is when the word is, it's not the exact same, word that's just being repeated. It's another word which just indicates and reflects the matbu in its meaning. For example, we have the word nafs, which means self. So you said nafsuhu, it means himself. So when I say he himself did it, then the word himself completely encaptures the meaning of he. Everything that is within the meaning of he is also included in himself. So nafsu and ainu are used for singular, and they also have dual and plural forms with different patterns and pronouns. So they can be masculine and feminine as well, and their pronouns will reflect their masculinity and femininity. And here are examples: ja'ani zaydun nafsuhu, or if it's dual, it'll be ja'ani az-zaydani anfusuhuma, which is the dual form. Or you could say, if ja'ani az zayduna anfusuhum, if it's a feminine word, it'd be nafsahuma for the dual form. Or for ainuhu, it will be a'yunuhuma or ainahuma or a'yunuhum for the depending on if it's masculine, feminine, or if it's singular, dual, or plural. So far these are just masculine examples. Sorry. So nafsahuma and ainahuma are just dual forms. But if I was to try and create a feminine meaning, so ja'ani hindun nafsuha, so nafs is the same still. But if it's dual, it'll still be anfusuhuma. It's the same. And nafsahuma, that's dual as well. So I could use dual or plural for that. The plural feminine is a bit different. So you note that the plural feminine form, it'll be anfusuhunna rather than anfusuhum. Likewise, ainuhuma, ayunuhuma, ainahuma, or ayunuhun. So of this second type, the manwi type, so we have more words that can be used for emphasizing the meaning. So this is the Ma'nwi type, is when it's not the same word that's being repeated merely, it's just another word which indicates the meaning. So you could say kullun or kullu. So kull, like these are for plural. Ajma'u, akta'u, abta'u, and absa'u. These are all used for emphasizing plural words. So they can't be used for dual words. But with kullu, it will have different pronouns depending on what it is, the type of word that it's emphasizing. So you could say ishtaraytu al-bustana kullahu. I purchased the entire garden. Or ja'ani al-qawmu kulluhum. All of the tribe nation came to me. Ishtaraytu al-hadiqatu kullaha. So you notice the ha pronoun is feminine, is because hadiqa, which also means garden, is feminine. So I purchased the garden, all of it. Or ja'atin nisa'u kulluhunna. So the women came or arrived, all of them. So hunna is the feminine plural pronoun that's being used here. And with with ajma'u, akta'u, abta'u, and absa'u, rather than having different pronouns, so a change in pronouns, their pattern will change depending if it's masculine or feminine. So example, اشتريت البستان كله, sorry, we'll say أجمع أقطع أبتع أبصع. So not أقطع, sorry, let me just repeat that. اشتريت البستان كله أجمع أقطع أبتع أبصع. They're mansub because they are following the ruling of bustan, which is mansub because it's the maf'ul bihi. So كله أجمع أقطع أبتع and أبصع. Also جاءني القوم كلهم أجمعون أقطعون أبتعون أبصعون. So here the pronoun did change as well, but it's not a detached pronoun. It's not a mansub or majrur pronoun. It's a marfu pronoun that's attached to them. So أجمعون, أقطعون, أبتعون, نبصعون, and these are all masculine examples. In the feminine example, you'll have اشتريت الحديقة كلها. So ha dhamir, the pronoun ha, is our example of that. And jam'a'a, kat'a'a, bat'a'a, bas'a'a. These are feminine pronouns. And these are the feminine forms of ajma'u, akta'u, abta'u, and absa'u. So remember we went over ta'neeth in ghayr munsarif, and we said that it can be mu'annath if there is an alif mamduda at the end. So this is when there's an alif at the end followed by a hamza. Then we have another type of ma'anwi particles or words which are used for emphasizing. They are kila and kilta. So they're specifically for dual words. For example, qama rajulani kilahuma. So the pronoun changed here. وقامت المرأتان كلتاهما. So the pronouns are attached there to refer back to the noun, but they will always be huma because this is a dual. This is for dual emphasis only. So there's some rules that you should take note of. Is if you want to emphasize dhamir marfu' muttasil. So this was like in darabtu, the tu, which is a pronoun which means I. It's attached to the verb daraba. It becomes darabtu because of morphology. So it's a pronoun which is marfu' and it's attached, and you want to emphasize it with nafs or ayn, then you have to bring a dhamir marfu' munfasil as well. For example, darabta anta nafsuka. So nafsu is marfu' because darabta and anta are marfu'. So you struck yourself, or you yourself struck. Not you struck yourself. It doesn't mean that, because nafsuka isn't the maf'ul bihi. It's being used here as ta'kid. So he's saying you are the one who struck. You yourself struck. So another point is you can only use kul and ajma to emphasize words that have parts, which can and we these are parts that we can perceive them being separated. So, for example, جاءني القوم كلهم أجمعون. So, a qawm, and a nation, is made up of individual people, and we can imagine those people being individuals. Similarly, if there's something which is thought to be under the ruling of having parts, for example, اشتريت البيت كلها. So, you have a house which people normally perceive of being made of being parts, having parts, this is because it's made of individual bricks, but you can't separate the parts away from each other. Whereas in Qawmu, you could separate the individual humans away from each other. But with the house, it won't be a house anymore if you do that. But you can't say something like Akramtu Daifa Kullaha. I honored the guest, all of it, right? Because it's not a word which we can imagine or perceive to be separated. It's not made of parts, the word guest. But like a hadiqa, which was a singular word, a garden, but you can imagine a garden having different parts within it. And we notice that words like akta, abta, and absa, they can only come when they are after ajma. So you have to, if you want to use those words, or if you're reading and you see those words, you'll notice that they always come after ajma when it's used for emphasis, and they never come before ajma. And inshallah, we'll leave it at that for today. We'll continue with the rest of the tawabi next time, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.